Inside Track, the official podcast of World Athletics.
Hey, so we are back for Inside Track from World Athletics. We're still in Paris. The track meet's been hot, but the pod has been even hotter. I'm Sonia Richards-Ross.
And I'm Greg Rutherford. Welcome back to your go-to pod for all of the great insights from the wonderful world of track and field and some very, very big opinions at times.
Yeah, I know we say this every single time, but we've had some great guests on the podcast already. And today we are pulling out the big guns. We got the CEO of World Athletics joining us, John Ridgen.
The big boss. That's going to be, it's going to be a very interesting chat.
Yeah.
And I also caught up with the fastest man alive's mother, Keisha Bishop. That was a fascinating chat. So I'm very, very excited for everybody to listen to that side of things.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear that one too. And as a reminder, we are a daily podcast. So if you haven't caught all the episodes yet, you're not doing anything else, catch up and be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcast.
And if you're listening or watching the podcast on YouTube, do remember, go to the World Athletics website, worldathletics.org/, I'm getting this now, Inside Track.
Yes. All right, well, give me all the tea. You spoke to Noah Lyles' mom, Keisha Bishop.
Did.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the chat because, I was running around the city doing all the million things I'm here
You're
doing.
so busy. You are literally, I genuinely have no idea how you do this. Like, I'm sort of getting really wrapped up in this, and this is basically all I'm doing here. You're here, there, and everywhere. You've got so much to do. And obviously you had your family here as well. So
yeah,
I thought I'd take over for you. Let you get on with the other bits you had to do.
Yeah.
But we had a great chat, and do you know what? Like, absolutely fascinating. I think we often forget the parents and the families and the loved ones that are always supporting us and all the athletes out there. So just getting that insight into Noah a little bit. Yeah. And obviously they've got a super fast family as well. I mean, it's obviously
her son. I always wonder about that. Like, you're watching the race and two of your kids are on the track. She's already, like so stressed by having one. She has two. There's a special moment that we saw with her and Noah after the race where she just said, "I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. You're so blessed." As a mother now too, I can't imagine just how special that is. So I missed that. But happy you guys get to see it. And I'm going to, of course, watch it too. So excited about that.
It's going to be very, very
What
exciting.
What else is going on? What else did you get into yesterday? Oh, we got to talk about.
Well, put your fists up.
Ready? You're not ready for me.
Here we go. Duck and diving, a bit of weaving. Did you see George Mills, the British 5,000 metre runner, nearly getting a bit of argy-bargy with his French counterpart? Did you see that?
No, so was this in the race where everybody was like on the floor?
Yes.
So see, I saw the photos, but I didn't see the actual race.
So, it's very new for athletics for it to start getting a bit like that. I'm all up for it.
Yes, listen, I am so sick and tired of everybody being like all huggy-duggy all the time and like, oh my God, congratulations, I love you. And it's really like, I wanted to beat you so bad.
Well, in this situation, George Mills basically falls down with a 4, I think it was 5 overall that fell down. He then gets up, goes through the line looking furious, finds like the French guy that he believed caused the crash.
Did he cause the crash though?
Well, I'm not 100% sure still on that. But, clearly something though, because they've all been reinstated into the race. They've all been given a pass through to the final. But he goes up, he gets in his face. There's a few expletives that were thrown around. He then pushes him. And then the French guy...
WWE here?
Oh, fully, he's like tombstoned in. No, he didn't do that. But
I was with you. I was like, where are the clips?
DDT came in. He got a chair up. No, none of that happened. But we just saw this side of an athlete furious because fundamentally you're training 4 years for the Olympic Games and you're watching everybody from the floor. You're not really ever meant to be on the floor watching your competitors run across the finish line. So, I found it really, really interesting and actually really liked it. I also straight away was like, I wonder if Sanya's ever attacked anybody. I wonder if she's ever got annoyed enough. That was literally where my head straight went. Has that ever happened? Have you ever got... Maybe even off the track, if after a race, has it got?
The only time I can recall where I kind of had that moment of like extreme frustration, I went to like, I've never told the story before, but we were preparing for, it was like a world championships and I was going to run my first 4x1 and we had met all together and the team had decided like what legs we were going to run on. They had asked us then if anybody had any objection. Nobody had any objections. We get to the track and I've warmed up, I'm warmed up, ready to go. All of a sudden there's this big discussion and, I won't name the athletes because you all know who they are. So I'll just keep that part, for you guys as a mystery. But end up sitting around the whole day and I go to run and I pull my hamstring. And when I tell you, I wanted to just,
Oh, I can imagine.
I did have a few words with the person, but yeah. So there are times where you get extremely emotional because you've put so much into it, and that person's decision impacts you in a very negative way. Yeah. And so I completely understand how he felt, and and I think I too would have probably done the same thing. So kudos to you for showing real emotion.
Absolutely,
and showing. We need to see more of that. So
absolutely.
Well, hopefully, we get lots of good emotions here today. I feel like there's one topic that might get you a little hot today. So stay tuned. John Ridgen's up next. Well, we can't deny it, right? The sport feels like it's in such a great spot. I've been very fortunate to be in the stadium every single night. We've got packed houses. We've got great performances for sure. We got great people coming to watch. Snoop Dogg has been there almost every night. Simone Biles coming tonight. So there's no doubt that the sport's in a great spot, but we can't stay stagnant, right? It's always our goal to get better and better. So I brought in the CEO of World Athletics, John Ridgen, to talk about where the sport is headed.
Thanks for the invite.
Of course. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for joining us. No, of course. Innovation is one of the most important things of any sport. And as we know, athletics has been pretty much the same for a very, very long time now. But the issue with innovation often is that there's some form of backlash, especially from athletes that we've seen so far. There's been a lot of talk about my old event, the long jump. And that's been one of the most contentious subjects with regards to the potential change that are going forward. I think it's really important at this point because, as I say, there's been so much talk and there's been a lot of noise, a lot of anger, to be totally honest at times. I think it's a really important thing at this point to try and get across to everybody, actually, what are the changes, how they're going to impact the athletes, and what the thought process is behind it. Because we've seen press releases and whatever else, athletes haven't reacted as well as maybe you guys would have hoped. I think now is probably a really good time for us to try and settle that, understand it, and maybe try and bring it forward a little bit.
Great. No, I completely agree with you. And it's good to have this opportunity, right? Let me start by kind of setting out the principles and then maybe, Greg, we can dive into the detail, right? So, look, our sport is amazing. And you're right, Sanya, we're in a good place, but we should keep driving to be better. And if you look at our sport and our desire as a collective to innovate, okay, we have to accept that a lot of the rules in our sport were created 150 years ago, and we should celebrate that. But we feel, as the International Federation, that often, federations are criticised of being slow-moving and lacking innovation, etc. And often that's right. We're trying not to be in that model, okay? So what we're trying to do is just look at events, okay? Not get rid of anything, but say, can we take what's there already, which is really good, but can we make it better by using technology that didn't exist 150 years ago? And just see if we can make events more entertaining, more engaging, more popular going forward. Because, we have the data now. We know what works and what doesn't work. And it's just trying to address those challenges. But I think, Greg, and do push back, I'm sure you will. But what we have said, and perhaps, and I'll take this on the chin, perhaps I haven't communicated that well enough, okay? But what we've said is we're not going to make any changes for the sake of it. It has to test well. Right. And we've got an event coming up very soon where we're going to test all this stuff with top level athletes.
Perfect.
So it's got to test well, and it's got to ultimately be embraced. Otherwise, we're not going to do it. I mean, we've got no interest in going to the war with the athletes, but I think it's a dereliction of duty in terms of what we're meant to be doing, not to at least try to push the boundaries.
Yeah, I think the testings that is an important thing. I think.
Here's the thing. I feel like I still too don't understand what the change is going to be. So before you guys go back and forth, can you just clearly express to me what the change, because I didn't do the long jump. I mean, although I could have, and I probably would have been really good at it.
Hang on, we've still got to have this run and jump off.
So well, I'm an ex-athlete, but I'm not going to start comparing medals with you two. So let's keep to the technical stuff, right? So because I'm going to lose that one.
I think it's also important that there's more than one potential change as well. And I think everybody in the long jump world, and I've spoken to a lot of the current athletes, the big hang up is on the board side of things. But what I think is genuinely important, because we have spoken about this, all of the changes that are taking place.
So, and by the way, long jump is just one thing we're looking at. We're looking at a whole range of things, right? So long jump, we're looking at there's three big things we're looking to do around long jump, okay? The first is we're working with Seiko, our timing sponsor. So the moment, a measurement and timing sponsor, the moment the athlete lands in the pit, the result comes up straight away. So it speeds the competition up. And it allows the public to follow it easier.
Yeah.
The second is we're looking at what's the perfect number of athletes that progress round by round, just to make it, keep the jeopardy, make it exciting as possible. Because sometimes, there are athletes left at the end who, statistically speaking, are not going to make a big impact on the podium. All right. And then the third element, the controversial one, is, data tells us that about a third of all jumps in championships are no jumps.
Right.
Data also tells us that the public do not enjoy the no jumps. It turns them off the event, right? So we're just looking at a way of, can we create a takeoff zone, which is actually only a slightly larger takeoff board, and actually that reduces the number of propensity to no jump, and actually allows us as well to use technology that all exists, it's all reliable, to measure the exact length of someone's jump from the end of their toe to where they land in the pit, okay? But I do accept it does, to a degree, change the nature of the event. I do accept that.
So first of all, with that then, I'm assuming current world records become null and void in a way. So Mike Powell's 895 from 91, that now becomes the old long jump world record.
Yeah, well, if this is adopted, and as I said, it has to be tested and all the rest of it. But if it tests well and ultimately adopted, yes, you would have to create, it would effectively be a new world record that would probably be beyond 9 meters.
Yeah,
I'm assuming, Greg, because I'm assuming some of your longest jumps were probably no jumps.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I can think of a few straight off the bat, which is really frustrating, of course. And you are, as the athlete, you are also, especially a toe edge foul, which is obviously a very small foul. If you get a good one, of course, it's very frustrating. It is also part of the skill of the sport, and it's where, again, the storytelling, I feel like, hasn't been very good over the years, and that's down to broadcasters as well, is that there's so much going on in a field event where you've got one person to lead, now another person to lead, now they're battling it out. All these different things are happening. Somebody might jump a national record, but all you see is a stat going up at the end, maybe one or two of the jumps. Generally, when you're sitting at home, you never really know what's taken place. Now, the other thing with regards to the actual board, what has to be understood, I think, for everybody else, because people think it's a line that's going to be put on the tracks. One of the big things that I've been speaking to people about, and they're going, well, if you're going to remove the board and change it just for a zone, that catalyst to take off is when we plant our foot on the board, and you feel it, and it is a bit of a spring. Like it's not. Again, I think people that watch, if anybody isn't an athletics fan, but they're tuning in for the first time, it isn't a springboard that would go off. It's a solid metal frame with a piece of wood on the top, and from that you feel underfoot something that gives you the catalyst to jump. So we need to make sure that is staying in somewhere. And you're saying that again, it's just the plasticine foul board will be removed, but you'll still be keeping the rest of the board. And it's the same size, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the board effectively is increased by 10 centimeters. So it's still...
no plasticine
you're still coming off wood and all the catapult effect you talk about, right? And you still keep a line where the athlete is trying to...
So you still have a visual representation of what would be a board there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
and
important.
But the point is here, if an athlete goes, a few millimeters over, it's still counted. So the actual change is not hugely significant, but I do accept it's a change. But I would say that I was talking to Carl Lewis the other day, who is hugely knowledgeable about long jump, just like you, Greg, right? And actually, it really makes his case very well. And he was saying, and by the way, to be fair to him, he didn't like this idea, so I'll be completely fair. But he did say to me, he said, John, I don't like the fact that long jumpers now, long jump seems to have lost some of its magic. It seems to be less popular than my day. So I guess my riposte to Carl would be, so let's look if we can do some things to the long jump to make it as popular as it was in your day, you know? So I think, but clearly we need to be better if it tests well of making the case. I do accept that.
Well, one more quick, I know you guys are like really into it. I just have one quick question for clarity. So basically, are we simply talking about, Greg, the board was once this and now it's going to go to this, and effectively long jumpers feel as though that's going to change it so much that it's going to lose the essence of what it used to be? Is it literally just a 10 centimeter change in the board?
Yes, but it's also where we measure from. So you measure from where your foot is, right? So irrespective on that board, where your foot is, you take it. So, Greg may have had massive jumps, but it was measured from the front of the board. We're measuring from where his foot would have been.
So as well. So that's almost like the 400 becoming potentially like 398 or something, like where it's like there is going to be potentially a significant change, because if the person took off at the back, or your best jump was from the back, you could have gotten all those inches, and now someone else will get that. Okay.
So basically, if somebody's taken off, give you an example. If I went into a major final or even a major qualification, we had learnt because of patterning. So I very rarely fouled, right? So, and that was, I think, one of the skills that I had and one of the reasons that I kept winning is because I was very good at not fouling. And yes, I did have a few, and I had a couple of really big ones, frustrating. But we would work on the idea of taking off back edge board. So we'd discuss this, we'd work it in training. So you'd make very small movements, my eye line, everything else, because all of this by feel, right? When I used to run down the runway, it's all about feel.
Right.
So you're then trying to get a back edge of the board in order to get a safe jump in. So effectively,
you're
on
giving
one
up.
level,
You're giving up.
It's not a bad idea because you don't have to worry about that.
Exactly.
So you can give it absolutely everything. With a bigger board, there would obviously be far less fouls, but we have to then say, what if people are going past the actual board size itself?
Then that's a foul.
That's actually a foul.
So in our testing, it
across.
removes the vast majority of fouls, but not all.
But not all,
right?
yeah.
But Greg saying it, I repeat again, right, for those who are now screaming at their screens, okay, this will never become a new rule. The long jump will not change to this unless it tests really well, unless ultimately the athletes embrace it. Yeah. I mean, that is our commitment,
Listen,
right? But I still think we should test stuff like this.
I think it will be great to be tested. I do think that innovation is super important in sport. And when you look at the spikes and the tracks and all that stuff, it is contributing to faster times in our discipline. It is going to make the records further out of reach. So I do think that with the long jump, such a special event where there's so many great personalities and great stories to tell, I think the innovation could help. So we got to just wait and see, right?
No, but again, where innovation has to be careful is where it falls in, where it comes in. So in 2016, I was at the sort of, again, height of my powers, if you like, in the way of jumping and everything else. And all of a sudden, in the Diamond League in Rome, it was tested that we're going to change up how the order runs, right? So I effectively finished my last round of the first 3, then cut it down to 4, but then it meant that I jumped straight away. Officials didn't understand what was going on. Us as the athletes didn't really understand what was going on. So I basically get out the pit, come round, official goes, you're on now. Your 30 seconds are going to start. Bear in mind, it changed from a minute to 30 seconds at that point as well. And there was, from my point of view, and I'll be honest what I did, I said, absolutely not. I then went back up to the other 3 athletes who had made that top 4, and I said, we're not jumping. And that might come across as me being arrogant, whatever it is, but of safeguarding the athletes, because fundamentally what comes with that situation is that injury will start coming up and fatigue and everything else, and the ability to actually perform then drops down. So actually where these test events come in, having the athletes on board that it is a test event, and that's what we want to do. That is something that I think needs to be handled maybe better to make the athletes feel as if they are a part of this, rather than you're going to come to the event that you've been training, whatever it might be, your opening competition here, might be midway through the season, but we're now going to change everything for you and you've just got to like it. The athletes have to be brought on board with this.
Yeah, no, it's a great point.
That stops the noise as well.
You know, when you make changes, sometimes there are consequences you didn't foresee happening, and that was a perfect example, right? But I'd like to think we're better now at being data-driven, genuinely data-driven, and I think testing is key, right?
Awesome. So, well, let's talk about something I think we all can agree on that we think is just so great for the sport. Prize money, the prize money that World Athletics introduced for Olympic medalists. I was so excited that we were leading the way on that, because many of us know that a lot of the athletes who compete in our sport have a second job, especially in the United States, right? Yeah. And these are the best athletes in the world. And you compare them to other athletes, other sports who they can only focus on sport because they have the resources to do that. I got to say, right, we all agree that was a great move. And there was a lot of talk about it before, but now that everybody's here, no one's talking about it anymore because, of course, everybody's focused on the gold medal. But I know when I talk to the athletes, there's been so much appreciation for the fact that you guys led the way on that.
So just sorry we can't do it retrospectively.
Don't be bitter.
Don't be bitter, guys.
I was about to say, hang on now, how far back can we track this?
So look, to us, it was a really simple decision. We want to pay the athletes more. We need to pay the athletes more because, you guys you could have been a great rugby player, I suspect. You probably could have played soccer, whatever in the American market, right? So we need to pay athletes if we want to keep our talent. I mean, Stoner, who won the discus Jamaican athlete last night, was saying that actually now he's become Olympic champion, he may be to stay in the sport rather than going to NFL because he can make a better living. And we're already paying in the 4-year cycle of our World Championships, we're already paying $24 million out in prize money to our athletes. And it just seemed bizarre, though, to us that the biggest prize of all, the Olympic Games, paid nothing. I know there's shoe companies that pay bonus and that, but ultimately, directly, there was nothing. So we just felt it was the right thing to do. So we've started with $50,000 here for gold, which I know is not life-changing, but it's a step. And we're
well,
also...
it's for some that we have to, depending on where you are in the world, maybe... It depends if you're a superstar from, say, the US or whatever else, then maybe it's not as much. But for a large part of the world, that is a life-changing amount of money. And that is very important to say. And as you mentioned, it is the biggest sporting show in the world. The fact that the athletes who... All of this isn't possible without. And that's always that disconnect, isn't it? Where athletes look at the sports that they're in, especially the Olympic sports, and feel like we're putting all this work, all this 4 years of absolute pain and borderline torture on the body at times, to then achieve the ultimate accolades. And there is no other accolade that is higher than Olympic champion. Like there really isn't. It doesn't matter if you win World Cup in soccer. I'll do just otherwise we get a bit lost here. That, of course, is maybe one of the biggest sports in the world, but as an individual accolade, it is the biggest one. And the athlete's not being supported in any way, shape, or form for doing that. And as you say, shoe companies, that's all well and good, but not everybody has that. A lot don't have that.
I was at the race walk yesterday morning, and most of those athletes probably aren't sponsored like the way you two were, right? So actually, you're right. The prize money makes a real difference, certainly to some event groups.
Yeah, again, on a note as well of people working, and again, I don't always just want to talk about the Brits, but in the long jump, we had Jacob Fincham-Dukes, who has literally had to leave the Olympics to get back to work. So he's finished fifth at Games, works full time as well. I worked as a kid, so from sort of 17 to 19 until I was in a situation where I could just about get by, I was still working to sort of try and fund the lifestyle. There's literally Olympic finalists who may have had an opportunity of winning a medal if they could focus all their time on it, but they can't because they've got to support it. So 100% backing the athletes. And again, I appreciate we just talked about athletics. This needs to happen across all Olympic sports.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
It really does. So hopefully this is the thought process set, and others are going to look in and go with it, because 100%, I think everybody in the athletics world was cheering and clapping and getting so excited about the prospect of doing it. It is a genuine, huge positive that has come out of this.
Well, thank you. And our commitment is to make sure that we carry on this process. So we've already committed in LA in 4 years' time to doing gold, silver, and bronze.
Fantastic.
And let's hope we can go further than that. But that's the commitment.
So, John, before I let you go, are there any other innovations around the sport that you're super excited about that we can look forward to that's, kind of coming down the pipeline that you could share?
So I'd say two things. I'd say a continuation of trying to pay the athletes more. I mean, we respect, the only reason we have a sport that generates profile and money is because of the star athletes. So we're absolutely committed to making sure it's a more lucrative landscape to be in. So that's one thing, and look out for further announcements on that over the next few months. But I think the second thing that we're really excited about, earlier this year, we announced a new global championships for 2026 called the World Athletics Ultimate Championships. And the thinking behind that is, if you look at the 4-year Olympic cycle, you have Olympic Games this year. We're going to have a World Championships in Tokyo next year. Then in 26, there's no global championships. Then 27, we've got a World Championships in Beijing, then the LA Olympics. And we just felt the sport really comes to life when you have these big global moments, right? When 1 billion eyeballs watch our sport. So we just felt it was a mistake, and it was an opportunity missed not to have a big championships in 26. So we're really excited about that event. We want it to be different, but sit alongside the World Championships and Olympics and be our big global moment for 26. So we're putting a lot of effort, Sanya, into making sure that event really flies in 26. It's going to be in Budapest, that obviously hosted a wonderful World Championships last year. So it's a good host. And so I think that's probably something we're really excited about. But also, going back to our long jump discussion, we just want to keep the pressure going and the energy going about, keep trying to move things forward. And it's not easy, but we've just got to make sure as a sport we keep pushing ourselves to be as good as we possibly can.
Well, if you want to innovate, remember in the long jump, there's certain runway in someone's back garden that's World Athletics certified. I'll have you know.
What?
It is. You can fully hold a competition in my back garden if you wish. So
Greg, you've just signed yourself up for a test event.
Let's go.
In Milton Keynes, in the back garden.
Done. Let's go. Glorious Milton Keynes.
And we'll host our Inside Track podcast right there too. Thank you so much for joining us.
John.
That was fabulous. Thank you,
Appreciate
John
it.
Richard,
Woo!
guys. right. Well, that was good.
Do you know what? That was really needed, actually, because especially within the long jump world, and I see it from both sides of it. Obviously, the former athlete and something that has been sort of out of the sport for a few years and watching the sport now from the stands. Change is inevitable with everything. It has to happen, but it's how that's approached, how the athletes are engaged, and how we work it out. And that's refreshing, I think, to hear John talking about how it's going to happen and actually getting everybody on board. That really needs to happen, because you can't just throw change at people for them to not understand what that means, and then basically tell them the thing you've been training your whole life for, well, we're going to change that now. So if you're aiming for become Olympic champion in the long jump, whatever else, well, that's all going to change and you have to change your training. It looks as if it won't be as extreme as people maybe were talking about on social media. And we know how bad social media can be for that, right? As soon as a storm gets whipped up, it goes crazy. So I'm thrilled to bits that we had that chat.
Yeah, me too.
I feel better. I actually feel better. That's a bit of a weight, because as well for me, I see it. I do speak to all the current long jumpers from all around the world, and I have great conversations with them. They do fear that the long jump isn't as big event, maybe say the 100 or whatever else, so their voice isn't heard. I genuinely feel like I can have a conversation. I can point them this way, of course, to come and watch the pod and listen. It's something that the sport does need to change. It does need to innovate. It does need to improve in certain aspects. And actually, I think what World Athletics and John suggesting through test events is the right way of doing it. Yeah,
I love that. I think being able to have the athletes experience it firsthand, get their feedback and go from there, I think that's the best way forward.
To know it's not definitely, like, that's the big thing. It's not just going to change and that's that. It will be tested. If the athletes, if everybody involved doesn't like where it's going, it may go a different direction and there might be a new thing to trial. So actually feel better about it. I think that the jumping community, and they're a very tight-knit group, I think they're going to feel a bit better from that. So that was a really, really good chat.
The other thing that was really interesting was, and I had been reading a lot about it, is the World Athletics Ultimate Championships, which I'm super excited about, because I do think giving the athletes something big to aim for every year, and he didn't mention it, but there's $10 million on the line there. So I'm excited about that, because that's a combination of innovation, new sport, and also what he said, bringing more money to the athletes. Absolutely. So I love that. So great conversation all around. I loved your passion for the long jump, and I do think your voice is important, because you do want to have that mix of the history of the sport with that fresh innovation. So good for that. But now it's time for your chat with Keisha Bishop, Noah's mom. I'm excited for that.
I'm really excited. Well, you've got to see it as well now. You're going to get yourself up to date with it. Let's go for it. So I'm flying solo again today, but I'm joined by somebody who has become just as big as the athletes during this game. And that is, of course, Keisha Bishop, the mum of Noah Lyles! Yay! First and foremost, well, I saw you straight after Noah just won, and I came running over and was like, you've got to come and do our podcast. It'd be really good fun. And obviously the world must have just been going absolutely crazy. Has it sunk in at all?
No.
I can tell you from experience, that was a long time ago that I became Olympic champion. It never really does sink in.
Really?
But what does that feel like, being the mum of arguably the biggest personality and person at this games, and the person sort of shoehorning themselves to becoming the biggest personalities at the games? What is that like for you?
Okay, so you want me to be honest, right?
Yes, of course, please.
Okay, it's like mixed feelings, because like we, Josephus runs too, so I might say they, so because it's like, both of my sons.
1993, isn't it,
yes.
for the two? I mean, you literally produce some of the fastest people in the world.
That's what they say.
It's true, it's fact.
Yeah, so, when they came to me, Noah and Josephus, with this dream, I told them that I would do whatever I could to support them, to make it happen. And I just wanted to see them be the best version of themselves that they could in whatever they chose to do in life. But I never imagined that it would come with all of this. I think it kind of hit me. We were flying home from Monaco for the World Athlete of the Year award. And I said, Noah, there's a scripture that says your gifts will make room for you and bring you before kings and queens. And I said, and we just dined with the Prince of Monaco. And he was like, yeah. And I said, and we didn't do this because we expected to be famous or to dine with the Prince of Monaco. We were just trying to be the best version of ourselves that we could be. So I think it's very humbling.
Yeah.
And I know people say, well, you work hard for it, but there's so many people who work hard, people who dig ditches and lay street roads and teachers and cafeteria workers, they work hard too.
Yeah,
so it's just very humbling when you think about that.
Yeah.
So I just hope that we're doing a great job in encouraging other people.
Absolutely. I mean, let's take it back a little bit as well, because I think what's always really interesting with the sports, especially sports like this, and of course, Noah is literally in the Blue Ribbon event, and he has become Olympic champion in the Blue Ribbon event. But what is he like away from? What's he like at home, for example, as your son? Because he's got this huge personality, and of course he's also bringing himself a lot of pressure. I think on purpose to really build himself, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do. But away from it, what's he like?
So I'll start out when he was younger. When he was younger, he was my kid who always wanted to have fun. So if we were reading a paragraph, for reading time, I would say, Noah, it's your turn to read. And he would say, my name's not Noah. And I would say, well, honey, what is your name? And he would say, my name is Windboy. Okay, Windboy, well, can you read the next paragraph? or he would go to church dressed up like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Brilliant.
And wear costumes. And so he's always had a very big personality. Yeah. I know part of the struggle for him was that big personality comes with being very creative. Yeah. And sometimes in traditional school environments, they want you to fall in line. So he wasn't one of those kids who got in trouble in school, but he did have a lot of personality and he hated going to school.
Really?
Yeah, so that kind of squelched some of his joy. But now that he's out there and he can be as creative as he wants to be, he loves it. Currently at home, he's a lot like me. We like people, but we spend a lot of energy when we meet with people. So when we are done, we are done.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We're exhausted. We don't know a middle ground. It's either here or here.
Don't speak to me. Close the doors. I don't want to hear anything. I just want to be quiet. Put the voice to rest.
Yes.
I can imagine. I find it really interesting as well. You're sort of talking about the creative side of him as a child as well, because as somebody that has 3 kids myself now, and I have exactly that conversation at that time, especially with my daughter who's now just turned 3, and she wants to, so she'll go around and I'll go, Daphne, could you grab me something? And she'll go, I am called Flower Girl now. Yes, and you're like, fantastic. Okay, brilliant. So she'll be walking around, we have to refer to her as Flower Girl.
I am a fan.
But it clearly shows though with that, and I think you're right, in traditional education things, at times it can be too much of a format, which is just one size fits all. Yes. And you have to let people be creative. Yes. And then that gives them the opportunity to flourish. And with that creativity, we know before that he'd had his nails done. Yes. And we talked about that. I didn't get to see at the games here, did he have his nails done differently?
Yeah. Yes.
What was on it this time? Because the last time he was on the pod, he was talking about the importance of his nails.
Yeah. So he just had his nails redone like 4 days ago.
Right.
And I haven't seen him. So I don't even know what his nails look like. I see him on the track like everybody else. In fact, he just called me a few minutes ago. He said, Mom, I'm calling to check on you because I haven't gotten to spend time with you.
Oh, that's lovely.
And I wanted to make sure you were okay. And I said, honey, I knew I wasn't going to get to see you. We're at the Olympics. I'm fine. But I thought it was very considerate of him to check on me. So I don't know what his nails look. But have you seen my nails?
Yeah, I know. Hey, that was what I was about to segue in. I feel like that. I mean, mine are horrendous.
They're not.
Are beautiful. And where can I go to get mine?
So actually, the young lady who did my nails is here.
Really?
She is the daughter of Tanja Buford Bailey, who coaches fantastic. Gabby.
Yeah, fantastic.
And so her daughter does nails. So I said, I need to represent Jamaica because I don't know if you know Noah's girlfriend is Jamaican and she's here competing in the 400 meters. And I said, I need to represent America because I need her to know that we love her too.
Absolutely. Good on you.
Yeah.
That segment, again, like, when we talk about the pressures that, say, Noah's going through as well, there's then that expectation, that pressure does often come out into family members and friends, everything else. Now for yourself.
Yes.
So, because as I saw you, as I was saying, you were being absolutely
bombarded
mobbed by people.
Yes.
And I'd be honest, I felt really sorry for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your empathy.
No, but honestly, because as much as of course, it's this incredible moment for you, but you've got so many people you've never seen in your life, including this ginger fool from the UK saying, "Can you come on my podcast?" I mean, it's one of those things that how do you, first of all, how do you feel about that, and how do you deal with that?
That's a great question. So in all honesty, before we came to the Olympics, I literally just stayed around my house and tried to just focus on myself, because the Olympic trials were very stressful for us, for our family. I don't know if you know, I'm sorry, some people saw me in the stands at the Olympic trials and I had my head in my hands, and it was because my aunt, who was like my favorite aunt, had just gone into hospice that morning. Right. And then Josephus did not make the finals, and then Noah did make the finals. So I was trying to process all of those emotions. And there's only 2 hours between the semifinal and the final for the 100 meters. So everywhere I went to try to get a few moments to myself, people were pulling on me and asked me, "Can we get a picture? Can we get this?" And so I was so emotionally drained after the race. That's why I tried to stand up and I just fell back down. So I said, okay, I have to do more self-care. So we live in a tiny town called Howie in the Hills.
Howie in the Hills, love that, right. You're putting it on the map, absolutely.
Yes, it's only 1,700 people there, and it's like 30 minutes from Orlando. But in our tiny little town, I feel like it's my bubble. I have the best neighbors. They're so sweet. So I said, before I go to the Olympics, I am going to make sure I take care of myself. Absolutely. So I did embroidery. I love doing embroidery.
Fantastic.
I watched my favorite movies. I journaled. I talked to my therapist. I did some swimming in my backyard. I rode my bike to the lake, just trying to do things to fill myself up. Yeah. Because I knew once I got here, I would be giving. And can't pour from an empty well.
Absolutely.
So I needed to make sure I gave. So to answer your question, the way I handle it is I mentally prepare myself. Right. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. And then if I'm here and I get drained, I call my therapist. Right. So she's on standby.
You are literally an athlete as well. You're having to go through the same rituals that athletes having to go through.
Yes.
Just trying to be the mum as well.
Yes.
I think that's a really important note as well. And obviously you mentioned you have someone, we've talked about him a couple of times now. How do you deal with something like the trials in that situation where there's complete disappointment for one, and then somebody, the complete flip side of it, where someone's thrilled to bits to be going to the Olympic Games? That must be so difficult for you as a mother to deal with that. How do you do that?
You cry.
Right. Happy tears and sad tears.
Happy tears and sad tears.
But when you're with them as well, like, what's that conversation? I mean, it must be so difficult.
Okay, so the conversation, the way it looks is, before we went to the Olympic trials, we met as a whole family, and which is hard because everybody lives in different places. But we had dinner as a family at the New York Grand Prix. Fantastic. And we went to a restaurant. And so the question that was asked at the table is, how can we as a family support you guys when you get to the Olympic trials? Right. Do you want to have breakfast together? Or do you want to have breakfast solo? If you have a rough race, do you want us to come up to you immediately? Or do you want some time to process what happened? And so we try to set our expectations as a family. Right. And then understanding that helps you to try to, because it's all about the athlete. Yeah. Even though I'm having a hard time, we have to remember it's all about the athlete in that moment and how we can serve the athlete. And so trying to meet their expectations is one way that we try to make sure that we're proactive instead of being reactive. But you're absolutely right. It's very difficult. And I think people don't realize that the journey is really hard. But there's a wonderful poem, and I don't know who wrote it, but I know Franklin Delano Roosevelt quoted it. And he said, "It's not the critic who counts, but it is the warrior who is in the arena, whose face is getting marred by dirt and dust and is bloodied, who, if he fails, at least he fails valiantly, trying to achieve what he wants to achieve." Fantastic. And I'm paraphrasing it, but I feel like that is how we live our life, because we get so much criticism. I don't know, I'm sure you guys know, we get a lot of criticism on social media. You have the trolls and the haters, but I just want all the athletes to know that it is better to have a dream and chase it, and then maybe you miss it, than to wonder, what if I had chased it? And I think that's how everybody should live their life. Oh,
that's really powerful. On one level, that's like the ultimate way to end it. But I have to ask you.
Okay, what you got to ask me?
Well, I've got to ask you about
the next couple of days and what's coming up and everything else, because you're here to support the fastest man alive.
That's what they say.
And, well, you are. And I mean, what should our expectations be for the next few days of this Olympic Games? Give it to us.
So I know I'm meeting with Snoop Dogg tonight.
Are you? Well, you say that. Yes. I may also be there, apparently. I've been told, because you're coming to the World Athletics box, I believe, to watch tonight. There is a chance that you've got to put up with me a little bit later as well. So we'll all be hanging out. And you, Snoop, we're going to have the time of our lives.
We are going to have the time of our lives.
I think that's a really interesting point, actually. Before we go on to talking about the rest of this Games, dealing with that side of it as well. All of a sudden, by running incredibly fast on a track, you now have superstars like Snoop Dogg. And we saw how excitable he was getting for the 100 and everything else as well. I mean, again, what is that like for you? How do you deal with those pressures? Genuinely. I mean, and of course, Noah is now one of those superstars.
Yeah.
But the most famous people in the world wanting to come and talk to you. What's that like?
So Noah has a funny quote. He says, my mom said, if you're not TD Jakes or Kirk Franklin, my mom doesn't care who you are.
Love that. Absolutely fantastic.
So when I met Snoop Dogg, I told my best friend, I said, I'm meeting Snoop Dogg. And she said, oh gosh, we're going to have to teach you who he is. And I said, well, I know who he is. I know one song. She was like, Keisha, this is pathetic. So when I met him, I said, I know who you are. I do know one of your songs. And he was like, you only know one song, Miss Keisha? I said, yeah, I'm not really into hip hop. And he said, okay, well, what else do you know? I said, I know that you love kids and you done stuff with Martha Stewart and you have a nonprofit with football teams and you did the Corona commercial. And he said, okay. So then he said, well, I have to get back to Canada because I'm doing a concert in 2 days. And I said, you still do concerts? He said, I got to get on your radar, Miss Keisha.
You've got a humbled Snoop Dogg while you've been here. And you are probably the only person that would ever imagine. That is fantastic, but rightly so.
So I don't, to me, people are people. There are certain people I would love to meet. Like I would love to meet Oprah Winfrey just because, but it's for a different reason, just because of her relationship with her mom and some adversity she's had to overcome. So I've had to overcome that too. So I just like to look at people as somebody like that as a mentor. Yeah. But I like to learn. So if I can like be with somebody I'm going to learn from, oh my gosh, I am super duper, alley-ooper excited.
Fantastic.
But people are just people,
Absolutely. I know my name was also on that list as well, but now we've met that it was, you've taken it off. I know you were going to say that. Yeah. Believe me, you're not going to be learning very much from me. I can promise
you're
that.
Not going to be
but honestly, it's just, lastly, what are we expecting from
So we are looking forward to, we plan on winning the 200 meters.
There we are.
We plan on winning the 4x1.
There we are.
And we plan on making this an exciting Olympics for the audience. And we just want everybody to have fun. And we just appreciate all the support and all the fans who have come out because that means a lot to us.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, we're very excited to see what the rest of this Olympic Games holds for you and, of course, Noah as well. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Everybody, Keisha Bishop. Here we are. Woo! So what did you think to that then? I'll be honest, I without you there, it does feel weird.
Aww.
But what did you think?
You held it down. It was a great interview. And I just think that you can just see her love for her kids, all that she's invested in them. They've been through so much, especially Noah, and to see him overcome all of that, a beautiful story.
It was lovely. And it was really funny as well. It was that reference to when they're younger and what they were. And I was obviously talking about my daughter and how she wants to be called Flower Girl and things. And it was Win Boy for him.
Right.
What about yours? Was,
my son has been calling himself Sonic since he was born. He thinks he's like the fastest thing, smoking. I got to humble him sometimes, remind him where the speed comes from. But
dusting off the old spikes and getting into the garden, backyard, and then going, like, let's go. Come on, Usher. Get out the way as you go through.
Wind Boy, Flower Girl, and Sonic. There, it seems like all champions to me. All right, well, let's move into one of my favorite parts of the show. I mean, all of it's so good, but are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
It's time for
Ask Me Anything. Wait.
All right, well, I got some really good ones.
Okay.
And so the reason I'm going to select this one is because a lot of people ask this, and I've been dying to set the record straight on this, right? So XOXO Linnell asked, do you have a script when you're commentating the Olympics? I mean, on so many levels, it doesn't make sense, right? It's like, first of all, we have no idea what's going to happen.
Of course.
But I think more what people are talking about, because I'm so good at it, it just it seems like I'm working off of a script, but what I'm actually doing is I do a ton of research.
Yeah.
And we have great researchers too that give us a lot of information. Then I go through and I pick the points that I think people would be most interested in. And what I always try to do is I try to illuminate and highlight parts of their stories that might connect with the public, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't go so much in the weeds about 48 this or whatever. It's more like this person is from this place and they did this, or their interest off the track is this or whatever. So no, we do not have a script. We are well prepared. We have a lot of stats and details. We do our best to try to, translate that to the audience and to inform the audience the best way we can. But no, I mean, we're just going off of what we're seeing live, the pictures that we see. And it's been a lot of fun. I love contributing to my sport in this way, being able to bring our enthusiasm to the public. So no script, all me.
Well, it's similar to this as well, right? Like we have a couple of points that we have down, and then we just go for it.
Yeah.
Just shutting us up is the problem.
Exactly.
I love it. Right, on my one,
okay.
Who have we got? This is from Eileen, it seems. Why are medal ceremonies not on the same day at the athletics? That's
question.
An interesting one as well, because obviously some are.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's obviously into timing, programming, and everything
Right.
else, because what everybody has to remember is everything stops in the stadium, can't have any events going on. So if
Right.
anybody's going to the field or something, you can't have a jump during that period.
Right.
You can't start a race.
Right.
Everybody stops. And as rightly so, you respect the medal winners,
the
you
flag,
respect
yeah.
the flags,
Yeah.
you listen to their national anthem.
Absolutely.
So they're always trying to sort of shoehorn them in where they can. But similar for me in London, I did exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, as the athlete, when it's the following day and you've
Yeah.
become Olympic champion, wow, that's a lot to get your head around. I remember
it's
going back to the village, laying on my bed, staring at the ceiling, going, if I fall asleep, this will not be real. I'm going to wake up and it's not real. So literally I just
that's so
stared.
cool.
So I was
That's
very,
cool.
very tired from my
Yeah.
medal ceremony the
Yeah,
following
yeah,
day.
yeah.
But it is, again, it's all about fitting it in. It's all about programming. It's about trying to keep the athletics flowing as best they possibly can.
Yeah, and they do a really good job. What I've loved so far for the medal ceremonies, whether they're early in the program or at the last thing, the crowds stay.
Yes.
And that means a lot to us, right? You
Yeah.
want to have that moment where everybody's there celebrating you. So
Absolutely.
So much fun on the track, so much fun here. But that's all we've got for you today. I know it goes by so quick.
I know, every time, and then you go off and then you're back to the track, and then we meet up again the following day. So I'm very excited. I'm going to be down the track tonight, by the way.
Oh,
so
nice. Yeah.
we'll be there. So I'm looking forward to some great performances. But if you're listening or watching the podcast on YouTube, do remember you can go to the World Athletics website, worldathletics.org/inside track, and you can get all of our amazing episodes, some nice little clips and bits and bobs, and just have an amazing time perusing the great sport of athletics.
We'll be back tomorrow with more great guests right here from Paris 24. See you then.
See you later.